Alrighty, well, welcome everyone. Great honor of having Dr. Green join us again. Dr. Green is the Assistant Dean of Admission, Outreach, and Diversity at the UC Davis School of Medicine, overseeing the respective programming and administration matters related to admission, pathway program, student and resident diversity initiatives. She leads the community practice efforts for UC Davis's National Center for Diverse Healthcare Workforce, facilitating forums and ensuring the stakeholders and community partners to achieve success in implementing institutional actions towards diverse and inclusive environment. Dr. Green is also the principal investigator of Avenue M of the California Medical Medicine Scholars Program. She's also a product of the community college system, and we're honored to have her join us again.
Thanks so much for that warm welcome. Great to be with you all again. So happy to share kind of the next hour with you. I usually try to go through the slides because I really want to provide an opportunity to ask questions. So thanks again. And I see Jubin has put up a survey.
Just a quick poll or push poll or whatever.
Should I start or should I wait?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
I'll go ahead and share my screen and then we will get this thing going. All right. Hopefully everyone can see that. Okay, so today I'm going to give you an overview of kind of the path to med school success. And it's a bit of a step-by-step guide to UC Davis School of Medicine, but also I love to just talk about medical school application and admissions in general. I'm on tons of work groups across the country with AAMC, with the American Medical Association, AMA. I work in partnership with a lot of medical schools on kind of this work around equitable admissions practices. Some of my titles were already mentioned. I do a lot of research as well on this topic of thinking about how we diversify the workforce relative to the needs, healthcare needs in our region. And I am also a community college counselor and instructor. I have been counseling at Consumers River College for 10 years now, part-time, and I also teach psychology courses and human career development courses at both Sac City College and CRC, Consumers River College. So I'm still heavily integrated and engaged with the community college population. So the first note I always love to make is everyone's journey looks different. So when we talk about this path to medicine, your journey is not going to look like your other pre-med friends. Your journey is going to be very different depending on your package, who you are, where you're at in the journey, especially that self-discovery towards healthcare and medicine specifically. As mentioned, I'm a community college grad. I graduated from American River College. This was my counselor, Dr. Judy Mays. Still keep in touch with her to this day. So this is just a plug. The people that are investing in you, keep in touch with them. They love, it really fulfills us to hear success stories of our students and our scholars. So every time something big in my life happens, I always reach out to Dr. Mays still to this day. So when I got my doctorate, when I got my master's degree, when I had children, when I got married, she has been in my life a really long time. So please keep in touch with those that are mentoring you. So hopefully everyone on this call already knows this part. The path to medicine, it's long game work, right? And that's totally okay. So what's really most important now is really trying to do well academically, gaining, and also retaining knowledge is better than finishing fast. So it's a long game, but every single course is going to help you for the next level of that course. So, right, if you're taking Gen Chem and then OChem, you actually need to understand it and do well if you want to be successful, because then you're actually going to take all of this knowledge from the science coursework when you get to medical school and pull it into the clinical environment. It's totally not uncommon for STEM students in a general sense to spend more than 2 years at community college. Remember, it's better to take your time. And it also just really depends on where you're starting in math, how long it could take you. Some of the benefits of a community college environment, smaller classroom sizes, access to various support entities that may be more impacted at the university level, like counseling or wellness, EOP programs, other education equity programs like Umoja, MESA, tutoring, etc. So a longer stint in community college will also be a little bit cheaper than just transferring and paying university level tuition fees. So take as many classes as you can that go towards your major and your general education work at the community college because it's more cost effective. So when we talk about like how long, especially for those who are in community college, but really this is relevant to like your first 2 years of college, no matter where you're going. So this is an example of emphasis on example of some STEM careers, right? So if we look at kind of each semester, this is just an outline of possibly 7 semesters, and they're difficult. So if you're looking across the board and also thinking about needing to take general education requirements at the same time, it's a pretty heavy load. So again, really being ready for that, spreading it out and making sure it's manageable for you because grades are really important. So as I showed you that last kind of example, I really want to emphasize that you should not do this alone. So make sure you're meeting with your counselors. We are paid to support you and we want to help you. Make sure you're taking the right math class, you're on the right path, because one misstep could really actually change, like put you back a whole year as far as your transfer timeline or your timeline to get to the next process in your educational career. So you want to make sure you're meeting with advisors and counselors to look at your general education, like what course map are you on? What major transfer requirements do you need or associate degree requirements do you need or undergraduate requirements do you need? So you have a plan because oftentimes, again, there's prereqs to prereqs to prereqs. So you want to make sure you're taking the right classes in the right order. If you are at community college, you do not have to get an associate's degree. But most STEM students end up with one as they complete transfer requirements because you're taking so many science classes. So some will get like a biology degree or just a science general degree, whatever your community college might have to offer. But by nature of the type of courses and the number of courses you have to take to transfer, you'll end up probably with an associate's anyway. Most transfer recs are going to be similar with a few differences here and there, depending on the program or school you want to transfer to. So that's why that next bullet is really important. Kind of by your 3rd semester, whether you are in already in a 4-year university or you are in community college, you really want to we want to start researching kind of your top school. So if you're in community college, where you want to transfer to, and then if you're already at a 4-year, thinking about the professional schools you want to apply to make sure that the major that you are in is aligning with either your transfer or the professional school you want to apply to. So make sure you're meeting with someone so you know what those necessary requirements are and you have a plan. And then there's 2 general education tracks here, particularly in California. The CSU breadth goes to 23 CSU schools, and the IGETC breadth goes to the 23 CSU schools, all the UC schools, in-state, out-of-state, private schools, HBCU. So the IGETC breadth is more goes more places. So how I always describe it to students is the CSU breadth. If you know you are going to a CSU school, it has actually a lot of more course options, whereas IGETC breadth is going to have limited course options because it's made to be general to go to many places. I get asked this question a lot. What should I major in if I'm a pre-medical student? So number one, you should major in whatever interests you most. So you do have to complete prerequisite requirements. So just by nature of you completing those prereq requirements, many students are biological sciences majors in some form or fashion. But we have admitted students, I think roughly about, I would say 10 to 15% every year at UC Davis who are English majors, history, sociology, other majors. So again, you can do any major, but you just have to complete those prerequisite courses that are required for the schools that you're applying to. So they also have higher admittance rates than camera bio majors, but fewer apply because most students that apply to medical school are going to be science majors. But also when you are not applying as a science major, it might take a little longer to graduate because a lot of people will sometimes extend their undergraduate career so they can do their prereqs. So that's one way to do it, or you can do it what they call post-grad. So after you get your bachelor's degree, you can complete prereqs at, for instance, a community college, at a college of continuing education, which is typically a little bit more expensive, but there are other options as well. Some students also do a career changer post-bac program is what it's called. I mentioned some of these already, advantages to being a science related major. The pre-med requisites are already in your degree. Your science GPA is padded with more science classes, which can also be a negative if you're not doing very well. So this is why I say take your time and learn the information because grades are important and you actually need to do well. And a lot of times science majors are going to be better prepared for the first year of medical school. And this is just a side note for those of you who might not know, you need to include all attempted courses on your medical school application called the AMCAS. Every single course you attempt. So even if you attempted a course and withdrew and you got a W or an incomplete, or you got an F and retook the class, or you got a D and retook the class, all of those have to be listed on your AAMC AMCAS application, and they are counted in your GPA. So make sure you're aware of that. Okay, so kind of what should you be focusing on kind of earlier in the pathway in college? As I mentioned multiple times, build a knowledge foundation, gaining understanding of the concepts, of the subjects, access the resources available to you on campus. Make it second nature that you would ask for help, because that's going to be really important as you transfer or as you go into your junior and senior year. You're going to know in a general sense how to access help, how to accept support, how to accept feedback, and that's actually really going to help you in medical school. Study skills with a rigorous academic load, you need to process information efficiently. It's very important. So it's really important to get a command on that because, again, the content's only going to get harder and the workload is only going to get a little bit heavier. You have to practice. Math and science skills are knowledge that must be practiced. So again, it's not like I'm just learning to pass the test. You're learning to gain that knowledge so it can be applicable later on. And also you have those skills in place. And I know many of you may have heard kind of the analogy of a fire hose in medical school. There's a lot of information coming at you. So that's absolutely true. I just sat with on a student panel yesterday and got to listen to some of our students talk about how medical school is very different from undergrad. And if you don't come in with strong study skills and focusing skills, it can be really challenging. And that lastly, again, as mentioned multiple times, learning for application. Here's a few pre-med resources that I'd like to share with everyone. When we talk about networking, it's really important for you to get connected into the pre-med world because you need to speak the language, if that makes sense. So sorry, 1 second, go back. So the application itself is huge. There's a lot to understand. And a medical school application is not, I'm going to sit down this weekend and do my application, or I'm going to take these 2 weeks and only focus on my application. It can be an 8 to 10 month process. So you want to make sure that by the time you get ready to apply, you understand the application, the language, you understand what they're asking, because there's so many different concepts. You know what tests you need to take for each school. Besides the MCAT, there's preview, there's the CASPER SJT. There's a lot of different requirements depending on the school. How do you access what all these different requirements are? Those are important things to know. And it's just like learning any other language that that's not your first language, right? You have to kind of immerse yourself into it. So here are some really great resources that you should connect with, some national organizations. So please do a little research and figure out which one would work best for you as far as getting connected in, and just starting with a couple. There's also, I didn't put it on this list, but a really great podcast for those of you who are getting closer to the application process. It's called Access in Medicine. One of my colleagues at Case Western hosts it, and they bring on different medical school admissions deans and talk about the processes and like what can make you a competitive applicant. So even things like podcasts. Back in my day, I'm getting old now, but back in my day, you actually had to go out and really like find the information, meet people. You have all of the access at your fingertips right now on your phone. Get your TikTok algorithm with pre-med students and pre-med advisors giving advice. So again, when you're in your spare time and you're listening to these podcasts or Pre-Med CC's YouTube channel, you're kind of getting immersed in the language of being a pre-med student and medical education. You'll start to speak the language when we talk about health disparities, when we talk about diverse healthcare workforce, when we talk about patient congruence and care. You're going to know what all of that means. So by the time you get to your interview, you're going to be speaking the language. So really immerse yourself in the pre-med kind of like atmosphere and world. Some things you can do before and after transfer. So this is just in college, right? So number one, understand your academic record. I talked about like you needing to include repeat classes and W's on your application. Create a timeline for your application. You don't have to necessarily stick to it, but you need to start doing the research to figure out how long it's going to take you to do stuff. Like, what are a good number of hours for XYZ? So make sure you're doing the proper research to put a plan together for yourself. That's a draft that's flexible for you, but then you're going to have a realistic idea of what does this process really look like. Extracurricular activities, shadowing healthcare providers, doing research, athletics clubs, leadership skills, related employment. There are some good choices because I'm working at a community college. I get a lot of students who are pre-med that want to talk to me, and they actually are trying to work towards being like an MA or a nurse or something else to get experience for medical school. So I always say it depends. Like, I wouldn't recommend doing like a whole nother degree certificate because that's going to make your road actually a little bit longer. And then it's actually going to give you something to explain. So it's totally fine. Like, if you're already an MA or you're already a nurse and you really decided, you know what, I actually want to do medicine and I want to pursue it for these reasons, right? I really want to, I'm super interested in systems. I want to do more for the patient. That's totally fine to make that career change. But if you're starting out and specifically trying to do another field like diagnostic medical sonography, medical assisting, nursing, or PA to get to medicine, it's probably not the best idea. It's going to take you much longer, number one. And then actually we sometimes see on applications, people are not explaining that transition very well. So they're like, well, if you just want to help people, why can't you do that with nursing? Or why can't you do that with PA? You're already a PA. Why are you trying to just do medicine? Oh, like we're going to come to our own conclusions, like, oh, do they want to just be in school forever? They really don't know what they want to do. I have 140 spots, right, out of 8,000 people. So I want the people who are sure this is what they want. They've done the proper research, they've done the proper investment in their experiences that are showcasing it is medicine for me and nothing else. So you don't want to make sure you're not confusing kind of the admissions committees if you're trying to do all these different careers. Now, I did list some that are very common experiences, like medical scribing, right? Because it's like some courses that you take and then you're certified, and then that gives you some really great patient experience with medical language, experience with healthcare providers and comprehensive healthcare teams. EMT is great, right? Great direct patient care, not a long process to become an EMT, but you won't want to do something that's going to throw you off 2 years and then really confuse the admissions committee as to why you're doing it. Other great opportunities, pre-health conferences, getting to interact with schools, getting, flyers and information about what requirements are. Because again, these are going to help you understand what are those general requirements. Your instructors, make yourself known. Make sure you're introducing yourself to instructors, especially those who you're enjoying their course or you really like their teaching style and you want to ask them for a letter of recommendation later on. They should know who you are. I am so-and-so. I'm a pre-med student, really enjoying your class. Would hope I can keep in touch with you on my journey. And then you need to be doing the work to keep in touch with them on your journey, right? Emailing them, happy holidays, Professor so-and-so. Hope you're doing well, still on the pre-med journey. What I learned in your class really helped me in the class I'm currently taking. So I just wanted to thank you for that. Make sure they're remembering who you are, right? So take the time to invest in those people that you might think about getting a letter from for your medical school application, because then they can sincerely write, I have known student so-and-so, they're one of the top blah, blah, blah in my class. I've known them to be on this pre-med journey for 4 years. They have shown dedication, commitment. They've, stayed in touch with me and kept me abreast of all these amazing things they're doing. You want them to brag on you, right? So make sure you're letting them know what they need to brag about over time. Okay, I mentioned this, finding mentors and building a support network with all of those organizations. And then look for summer opportunities to do research enrichment activities and pathway programs. And for most of you who don't know, summer activities, the application typically opens in like December, January, and they're due like February, March. So don't be looking in like April or May for something in the summer because there's not going to be anything left. So make sure you're looking early and marking your calendar with when the application cycle generally opens for summer opportunities. Okay.
One one thing that I would add is we're doing this. This has happened almost every year. We have a bunch of events for summer programs in the fall. And then when we get emails in April, May, it's like, oh, we didn't know, we missed the deadline. Most of those deadlines are done, as you stated, in January. So that's why we do a bunch of programmings. We bring some programs to talk about their summer programs, and then some of you don't apply, and then we get an email in May saying, "Hey, can you write us a?" It's like we have no power to ask any program to extend their deadline for anyone. So, yeah, so just want to throw that out there.
Agreed. Yeah, so if you're going to be serious about this, make sure you're putting in your applications, early. You need at least, one opportunity, but it'd be great, if you options are always good. And again, the point is, it's not to check a box. You need exposure to programs and exposure to research and healthcare environments because you yourself need to decide for yourself, is this an investment you want to continue to make? Do you really like it, right? So if you're not eagerly seeking the next opportunity after you do a program, then you need to assess, like, am I on the right track that works for me, right? So just keep that in mind, that this is about you developing emotional intelligence and developing a love for this profession by exposure, right? You don't just get good at soccer. You have to train, you have to learn, you have to educate yourself and work at it. It's the same thing with medicine. So here's a couple myth busters I like to go over. Number one, you should take a science intense course load at community college to prove you can handle harder material. These are all false, by the way. Hopefully everyone will figure that out. So no, you should not just take it to prove you can handle harder material, because oftentimes that backfires. And quite literally, if you're not getting like straight A's or maybe A's and one B, that could really backfire on you, because then if you're just getting C's and then you're showcasing you actually can't handle medical school, right? So you don't want it to backfire on you. So again, take what you can handle. Going slow is sometimes better than finishing fast. Community college requirements do not count from medical school, or community college courses don't count for medical school admissions. That is completely false. We're looking at your whole academic package, and we're really just trying to assess, like, can you do medical school, right? So it doesn't matter if it's at a community college, either you are a transfer student or you did your prereqs post-grad, we don't care. We are looking at how you look overall with your whole academic package and then your assessment scores with the MCAT. Can you do medical school? Staying longer than 2 years in community college is not looked upon favorably. Obviously, that is also false. Many people stay 3 years, sometimes 4 years, sometimes 5 years to finish their requirements. So that, again, is normal. Especially for STEM students, depending on where you started in math, as I mentioned before. Medical schools do not accept students that started at community college. Again, false. Getting a C in a core science course or a prereq course automatically disqualifies you for medical school admissions. Completely false. Again, we don't want to see straight C's or D's and F's or a lot of repeats, but a C in a few courses. Again, we're looking at your whole academic package. So let's say maybe you struggle, but you're trending back up. Completely normal. And doesn't discount you from being a competitive medical school applicant. So we're looking at, how did you remediate it? Like, how well did you do the next semester? Did you get tutoring? Did you do this, right? So making sure you're paying attention to those things. Taking the MCAT to see how you do is a good way to figure out what you need to work on. If y'all have heard me talk before, I always say, please don't take the MCAT for funsies. That is a bad idea. You should be taking practice exams to see where you're at and getting a score that you are happy with, depending on what your goal is and your capability and where you start with your baseline. But don't just take it for fun, because we do see every single attempt. So I literally have seen people take it and they start off like a 12%. And also, it's expensive, number one, and it's a long test. It's not something that you want to pay your money to be tortured multiple times. So it's totally fine to take it multiple times if you need to, but don't just take it to see how you do. That's a bad idea. Okay, the next one, you have to
Yes,
graduate.
because you see all their all their scores, right?
Yes, we see every attempt, as mentioned. Yeah. We see every single attempt. And also, it is okay if you have to take it again and you trend up. What you don't want to do is trend down, right? You don't want to do worse on an attempt. So this is why I say you need to ensure that you're ready. You should take the MCAT when you're ready to take the MCAT, not when your pre-med study group is taking the MCAT. That doesn't have anything to do with you. You take the MCAT when you're ready to take the MCAT. You have to graduate from a UC school to be admitted to a UC medical school. Completely false. We accept students from all schools. Again, we're looking at your ability to handle medical school, and and for UC Davis, your commitment to the community, and then some cohesiveness in your application. You need to be a science major to go to medical school. We already demystified that. You do not have to be a science major. And you should do other health professions programs and careers to get experience in medical school. We touched on that already. That yes, it's fine to do scribe or EMT, but maybe a profession that's going to take a little longer, like PA in nursing or MA, probably not a good idea. Okay, let's talk about some things specific to UC Davis School of Medicine. So we really practice this socially accountable admissions process. I actually do a lot of research on this and share kind of our best practices with other medical schools all over the country. But really, is social accountable admissions is this idea that the school has an obligation to direct kind of their energy, right, in education, research, and services towards the priority health concerns of their community or region or whoever they say they're going to serve, right? So we should be putting our energy, if we say that's who we are, we should put our energy towards that. It has to be an institutional priority. So it can't just be like admissions cares about it or diversity cares about it. The institution really has to all be saying the same thing from the top to the bottom. And the strategy that we use that is part of this premise of socially accountable admissions, which actually comes from the Fitzmullen Institute. They came up with this social mission concept. As what we're trying to do is really select students from communities with the greatest health needs, right? If you think about who's likely to go serve communities with health needs, it's people from the community. So our goal really is to go in with a lot of our pathway programs and tap into the talent in these communities of need and help support those learners go through the medical pathway, right? That's kind of our goal. So this is what we're really looking to find at UC Davis School of Medicine. If you look at this first zip code 95817, that's actually where our medical school and our health system is in Sacramento, California. 95616 is Davis, California, where the Davis main campus is. So as you can see, there is a 10-year difference in the life expectancy. So we're looking for learners who want to approach these types of problems, right? Who want to really help communities in need, who are interested in solving this problem, and who are helping us think as the next generation of physicians, like how we can solve larger systemic healthcare issues. So I mentioned we were talking about, do medical schools not like accepting students from community college? We are talking about this at the highest levels of leadership throughout the country. And there's also evidence. So here's actually a paper with many colleagues from UC Davis School of Medicine. Also, many of you might know Dr. Efrain Talamantes, once at UC Davis School of Medicine and now at AltaMed in SoCal. There's actually quite literally evidence showcasing that community college students actually serve communities of need, and they actually end up serving underserved communities more frequently than others. So there's actually like now evidence data that showcases this is who we should be providing evaluation metrics around communities that people come from and where if they go to community college and end up going into a healthcare field. So here's some application pro tips depending on where you're at, but can be pretty applicable across the board. So number one, build your network now. I gave you some websites, some areas where you can meet folks and mentors. Keep documentation of your activities for your application. So you should be keeping like a Google Doc or something, a spreadsheet that says, okay, and this month to this month, I did this activity. Here's a small description of what I did. And here's a main contact person in case I want to get a letter for this person. Like you should be keeping that because you don't want to sit down and write your application like, what did I do 4 years ago? You don't want that. You can always take stuff out, but you should be documenting these things and seeing where there are some overlapping themes like, oh, wow, I'm really into like women's health, or I'm really into like, mentoring and serving and helping mentor, like tutoring and helping mentor other like folks from underrepresented backgrounds or marginalized community, like that's my thing. So you want to make sure you're documenting and keeping like an eye on it so you can kind of see where's the theme of your application going to be headed. You need to tell a story with your whole application. Don't leave us guessing who you are. If we have to figure it out, it's probably not going to be good. We're not probably going to come to the right conclusion that you're looking for us to have. And in our process, by the time you actually matriculate to our medical school, 30 people have touched your application. So that's 30 people that are going to read your application and 30 people who are saying this 140 applicants rise to the top of this stack of 8,000, right? So it's a really competitive process. There's about 1,500 spots for first-year medical students here in California. And if we're getting 8,000 applications, I'm sure the other schools are getting quite a few as well. California actually ends up exporting about 3 out of every 4 applicants to out-of-state medical school. So I also recommend you apply broadly and make sure you know where you're applying and that you are, right, you're working on your secondaries, making sure that you're aligned with their mission, et cetera. Be authentic and be vulnerable because your story is the best part of you. We read a lot of applications. Like we can tell when someone's checkboxing, when it's not authentic. You're just telling us what you think we want to hear. And that's probably going to get your application pushed to the side, right? In a virtual sense, right? Everything's online, but make sure you are really just telling who you are, why you want to do this, and it is truly authentic, because that's kind of what we're looking for. And then lastly, have people who review applications look at your whole package, right? You want to make sure that, again, your application is going to come across to multiple different people and be appealing and interesting, things like that. So you want to have people help you and edit that have seen successful applications and seen not successful applications, so they can give you an idea of maybe some areas of improvement. This is just a brief overview for those who have never even looked at the AMCAS application yet. So the AMCAS is the name of the application. It's like one application we call a primary app that you can apply to all of these different schools. It has kind of your biographical info. So like, who's your mom, who's your dad, where are you from, everything about you, all of the coursework you've taken, the MCAT, your experiences up to 15, and then you get to pick 3 that are your most meaningful, letters of recommendation, and then your personal statement. Then schools will review your application. Some schools send everybody a secondary, some schools don't. UC Davis does not send every applicant a secondary application, but the secondary application is typically you provide more info about yourself, and then the school will have some specific questions specific to their school that you'll need to answer. Save all of those responses, because a lot of us are asking very similar things, so you can just kind of tweak it, but make sure you just have a running Google Doc of all of your secondary responses. And then you'll have it. And then if you get through that stage, you'll be invited to an interview. It's going to typically be traditional, or what we call MMI, multiple mini interview. That's what we have at UC Davis. And it's a series of kind of like a speed dating, essentially, where you are having 6 minutes to respond to a question that you've had 2 minutes to review with an interviewer. In our process, you'll have 10 different interviewers. So the interview ours are blinded. So interviews have not seen your application, so totally fine to talk about your application as you are going through the interview, because that's actually going to help it tie together when the committees are reviewing you. But the cool part about the MMI is if you feel like you tanked one interview, number one, you probably didn't, because pre-meds are pretty hard on themselves. But the goal is to not even think about that, is just to keep moving forward, because you still have 9 other stations where you can really shine. So that's the great part about the multiple mini interview. You got a lot of chances to shine. And then after the interview, the committee reviews your entire application, including your interview scores and comments, for final decision. And then you're either accepted, waitlisted, or rejected at that time. Here are the UC Davis requirements. The MCAT within 3 years, a bachelor's degree in anything. The bachelor's degree has to be, or the bachelor's degree can be from a foreign, out of the country school, or as long as your prereqs are done at a US accredited medical school. So a lot of times people who have a foreign degree, they'll come and do their prereqs at a community college or a college of continuing education. That's totally fine. And again, bachelor's degree in everything. And then at a US accredited school, 1 year bio, 1 year of Gen Chem, 1 year of OChem, or you can do biochem for the OChem requirement, and then a year of general physics. And that's recommended within 5 years, but not required. So if you did it 10 years ago and got all A's, don't take them again. Again, you're trying to showcase academic rigor, but you're also trying to apply broadly. So make sure you're looking at other schools to see, do they require 5 years? Because that's just Davis. Here is my personal statement starter pack. So again, this is 8 to 10 month process. If you're not doing 8 drafts minimum of your personal statement, you're probably not doing it right. So this is what I tell people to just get started. Your personal statement should be way more than that. But for people who get writer's block, it's really important to start kind of thinking about what your topics are going to be. And so just to get words on the paper, start there. When did you know you wanted to go into the field of medicine? Since you were 4, you had a really great experience in healthcare, you had a really bad experience in healthcare. When did you know? Number 2, what have you done within your scope as a pre-med to foster and grow this passion? So experiences, activity, something really meaningful that you did that helped you keep growing towards that goal of becoming a physician. And then what will you do to contribute to the field of medicine? So that's just, again, to get you started, to get words on the paper. And then you should be doing several versions of your personal statement until it's ready to go by checking in with other people who help people get into medical school. I really briefly want to touch on Avenue M. I know there's more than just community college prospective applicants on the call, but this program is one of 9 programs that I lead, Avenue M, and it is a community college to medicine program. It's funded by the California Medicine Scholars Program. And each year we take 50 students. Our application process is currently open now. It's just Avenue M. ucdavis.edu is the website, which I'll show you at the end. But again, our program focuses on community colleges in Northern California that are interested in serving underserved communities. And then part of our focus is to recruit a diverse group of mission-focused students. So we think of diversity in every way. So we are looking for students who have different perspectives, different socioeconomic statuses. We have veterans in our program. We have students over 25 in our program, just a diverse array of those who want to serve those underserved communities in California. With our school, you do have a guarantee, or you basically will transfer to stay an Avenue M student. You'd have to transfer to one of our partner schools, which is UC Davis, Sac State, and Cal Poly Humboldt. Here's the list of community colleges we're currently partnered with. As you can see, our program has a far reach all over Northern California. And then being in this program gives you what we call priority admissions consideration for our medical school process. So it's not a guaranteed admissions to our medical school, but it kind of gives you before you are rejected at any part of the admissions process, you're looked at by the final admissions committee to see, is there something that we want to petition to save this applicant because they're super mission aligned, we feel like they're unique, they're really going to serve the underserved communities, especially in some of our rural and remote areas. Then a petition would go in, a formal committee would review the application again, which that means a lot when you're competing against 8,000 people. But the other great part of the program is that we actually give you a lot of support in helping you prepare for medical school. So there is enrichment workshops and cohort meetings every month. You're not required to go to all of them. It's one a term. So it's like you get to pick what you will go to, but the requirement is just one a term, but they're offered every month. We provide a summer immersion your first year. We provide you a paid internship your second year. We support you in the transfer process. And then once you transfer and you have completed a certain number of hours with research and clinical environment, which we help you get, then we also help you prepare for the application and pay for your MCAT preparation course as well as your exam. So there's a lot of perks to being in the program, but we're really selective on finding students who are, again, mission aligned, interested in underserved communities, and have demonstrated kind of engagement with those communities. Here's our general eligibility 3.0. Even if you're in your first semester and you have pending coursework, you can still apply for the cohort 3. And so that's coming up. And you would just have to submit your unofficial transcripts after you finish, after your grades post in fall. You have to complete a student ed plan with your community college counselor. And that needs to be submitted with your application as well, because we want to make sure you've had a touch point with your counselor and you have a plan for when you'll transfer, whether that's 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, that doesn't matter to us. We just want to make sure you're actively engaging with the people that are there to help support you. So we do have some info sessions coming up. If you go to our website, avenue.ucdavis.edu, you can register for one of our info sessions if you want to hear more about it. And our application closes November 30th at 11:59 p.m. Now, if you didn't see your community college on in one of our programs, there are California Medicine Scholars funds 3 other hubs, we call them, one with UCSF Fresno, one with UC Riverside, and one with UC San Diego. Here are the colleges they're associated with, listed here, but you can always check out more information at the California Medicine Scholars Program.org website as well to see how you can get engaged. If you didn't see any of your programs there, here's some other programs that we have at UC Davis School of Medicine. If you yourself happen to be in high school or have any siblings or friends that are in high school, we have a Health Equity Academy. We offer 3 times a year for 60 students, 3 times a year. One is virtual for those who are geographically dispersed. And that is an exposure program that helps kind of build leadership, helps you kind of get engaged with medicine, and then you actually do a research project by the end. Our MISPEP program is for undergrad, juniors, and seniors at Sac State and UC Davis, or CSU students specifically who are returning to the Sacramento region. It's basically a support for application and MCAT prep. We also have the California Postbac Consortium, which I'm also the principal investigator for that program as well. So we are a consortium of 6 postbac programs. Hawagaduk Tribal Health Postbac at Cal Poly Humboldt, UC Davis's postbac, UCSS postbac, UC Irvine's post-bac, UCLA's post-bac, and I'm missing one. Maybe I got them all.
San Diego.
Thank you. No, San Diego's not in our consortium. I'm missing one. I'll figure it out. Put it in the chat. I feel so bad.
Irvine,
Yes,
Davis,
Irvine.
UCS. Yeah,
Irvine Davis, Charles Drew. Oh my gosh, how did I
good.
forget Charles Drew? Charles Drew's in our consortium as well. They're awesome partners. So with one application, it's free. You can apply to all six of those programs or whichever ones you want to apply to as well. So if you're a career changer, or maybe we call them academic enhancers, you want to kind of enhance your academic, your GPA, you might want to think about applying to a formal post-bac program because you also kind of get some mentorship and support. And then UC Davis School of Medicine hosts virtual tours and outreach events probably 3 to 4 times a year. We have virtual tours, and we'll all be at the pre-health conference on November 2nd at University of California, Davis. I think that's it for me. Here are all of our websites and contact information. Please feel free to reach out. If you have general questions, please send them to the admissions office. If you have a very specific question, like a unique question, you can definitely feel free to email me and I'll send you a link to schedule. But again, please only use that if you have a very specific question. I don't mind pre-meds reaching out to me, but there are also 8,000 of y'all. So if you have general questions, our admissions team can help answer that. But if you do have a very specific, unique question about like your specific situation or need advisement, I can't advise your actual application or provide edits or look at your personal statement, but definitely can give you general advice. And that's it for me. Thanks for your attention, everyone.
All right, so let's go to the questions. First one, does admission committee look favorably upon grades from a master's degree if they've shown upward trend trajectory?
Mhm.
And then also, are the GPAs going to be the same or separate?
So the GPAs are separate. So we get actually a ton of GPAs. When we see your application, we get every single year. So like freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, undergrad total, we get a post-grad total. They call it post-bac total. Then we get a graduate total. And then for each of those, we get your BCPM breakdown for every single one of them. So we get a ton of numbers to like try to assess your grade trends. So for a grad program, my answer when everyone asks me about coursework or grades or GPAs is it depends. Like what else does your academic package look like? And then what kind of master's program? An MPH, right? Master's in Public Health. Like it's expected for a master's program that you're going to get like 3.8, 3.7, 4.0, because it'll look bad if you don't. But as far as like showcasing academic rigor and science, like a master's in public health probably wouldn't do that. It's going to contribute to more like your attributes, what you're interested in, kind of the problems you want to help resolve in medicine. So it doesn't look good if you don't do well, but it's not necessarily going to showcase that academic rigor. So it's important to do well, but we're not going to look at like the same as like a post-bac program or post-grad work that is specifically science intense, or like a special master's program that is science focused. So although it's not going to change your undergrad GPA, that would really help us understand that, okay, if they got straight A's in a special master's program specifically for pre-meds or pre-health students, that they could probably do medical school. So it just all depends.
Another question is, I'm planning to transfer from one UC school to another UC school. Would this be seen as a negative in the medical school application?
No, I don't think so. I think there's typically spaces where you can explain things if you need to, but a lot of times people are like, I just want to move closer to home, or especially during the pandemic, a lot of people were switching schools. So I don't think that looks unusual to us. Or sometimes folks went to out-of-state schools and wanted to return home. So again, we're looking at your package, your grades, and like what you did. If you feel like there was a significant thing in your life, like, you know, it helps to not make people guess. So we've had students say, I had a sick parent or a sick sibling, so I had to actually transfer back closer to home. That's totally fine. So if you feel comfortable explaining it, it probably wouldn't hurt to put a one-liner in the area, because there's like now a question about something that's impacted you. You probably should put it in there just so we can move past it.
This is a question. What can I do right now as a uh, high school student, to start my pre-med journey?
Yes, so I mentioned some of this in the presentation, but definitely as a high school student, you should similarly engage in like pre-health or pre-med clubs. If there's not one at your school, guess what? You're now the president. Make one up, right? Leadership, right? So it's also making a stance that people know you as a pre-med student, right? Because when people know things about you, that gives you opportunity. So your science teacher might be like, oh, I heard about this pre-health fair. I would love for you to go to that. I want to sponsor you, or I want to connect you. So as a medical school, guess where we go when we have scholarships or opportunities? We go to counselors, we go to the pre-med club advisor, or the pre-health club advisor. We're going to the cluster of students where we're trying to recruit people, right? So make yourself known as a pre-med student. Also, if you're lucky enough to have a physician, talk to your physician and make it known, like, hey, I'm also interested in pre-med. If there's any opportunities that come your way for shadowing or pathway programs, I would really be interested in joining that because I really want to get some experience. Also volunteering. I tell students that sometimes it's a little bit difficult to get into the bigger health systems, but try community health clinics. They really enjoy volunteers. It's a little bit easier than getting into some of the huge health systems. So if you literally Google community health clinics enter in your city, you can reach out, and they typically have a volunteer application. And for some folks who are in undergrad already, they typically have like part-time jobs as well. So check out community health clinics. They're a great way to get experience, and they really enjoy the help. And lastly, I will say elder care homes are really great. Like a lot of elderly people would love to, have time spent with them and chat with them, and it'll help you get engaged in kind of the patient care setting, and also help you connect with other healthcare providers, like all of the ones that work in some of these elder care homes. So think about different creative ways to kind of get your first experience. And then the next ones are a little bit easier because now you've gained some networking and you're kind of integrated into the community.
Yeah, I know one person that they started doing this in high school, and actually they made it to a nonprofit, but they went to the local elder care home and taught them how to use the internet and social media and stuff. And yeah, and so that's like a really great tool. If you share, anybody that's in high school knows how to use social media and can teach.
There you go.
Um, yeah, and then the other part of it, I would just say, is learn to be a good student, like learn how to learn, and math and all
100%.
those courses. Um, this is a question. Is it just the MMI where the interview haven't seen your application beforehand?
Well, and that's just our MMI. It's called blinded interviews. And so we blind ours, but not all schools that do MMI do that. So it's really important as you're getting interview invites or as you're applying to schools, completing secondaries, kind of knowing what the process is. So many schools, like I said, do virtual like info sessions. It's really good to go to those.
Another question, who could we ask to review our application before we send it to medical school?
Mhm. So if you are, so number one, tapping into your resources. Some medical schools have workshops or like personal statement workshops. So if you see those, definitely sign up for them. But many of our medical schools, we have pretty small admissions teams, so we don't really have capacity. And again, there are 8,000 of y'all. So to get application review, number one, check with your current campus's writing center, or if you're lucky enough to have a pre-health advising office or an office that works with STEM students, get connected with them because they'll typically have workshops. They'll have a advisor or a staff support person who typically is the person who helps. So that's a great place to start. If you happen to be lucky enough to know physicians or other medical students, that's a great place to start. And like I said, to get tips for writing, areas of where you can get experience, check into like your TikTok algorithm. Not all advice is not good advice. So take it all with a grain of salt, and make sure that the people you're getting information for are credible, right? Like they are people who've seen a lot of people get into medical school and not get into medical school, so they know what success looks like and doesn't look like. And I saw it was just put in the chat, the Me Mentor MSR program, not MSAR, different thing, MSR program, Medical Student Ready program, which UC Davis Office of Student and Resident Diversity is a sponsor of that program. It's an awesome program. Me Mentor does a great job on that as well. You do have to apply and be admitted, and I think it's a 10-month program.
Yeah. Yeah, and then also, and I'll put that out there as well. NAHP has a program too if you are not if you don't have a pre-health advisor at your school. If you do, they won't help you. So I'll put that in the link.
Mhm.
Um, they said that regarding the 1 year coursework, which means 2 semesters of general physics, 1 and 2 general chemistry, etc. Yes, yes, right.
What, can you repeat that? Because my
They're wanting to
I
know
broke
about
up.
the coursework recommendation.
Mhm.
The 1 year, is it 1 year, two
Oh,
semesters,
the
or three
prereqs?
quarters? Yeah.
Yeah, for the prereqs. Great question. So for us, 1 year is exactly what you just said. It's either 2 semesters or 3 quarters. And it has to equate to 8 units. So it can't just be like 3 unit courses. So typically they need to have a lab in them.
Yeah, and the key word is that you got it's for general chemistry, physics, it's for majors. There's also two physics. There's the engineering physics, that's calculus, which if you are gluttony for punishment, you could do that, or good at calculus, or you could do the general physics that's algebra based.
Mhm.
And I think the engineering one is 1.5 years, not 1 year. Is it okay to mention the specialty aspired to be matched with in your personal statement, or should you keep it general?
Oh, like which specialty you're interested in?
Yeah.
So again, it depends, and this is why you should have other people read your application. So yes, something that is, so it depends on who you are and like what you want to do. If you know, like, I want to be a radiologist forever, you better have a good reason why. Because a lot of times we see people haven't done their due diligence on exploring medical fields, like they just know a radiologist, so they want to be a radiologist, and that's great. Um, but thinking about also things like I want to be a neurosurgeon. Again, that's a great goal. If that's true to who you are, that's great, but it might be off-putting to some schools, depending on what the school's missions are. So then you need to really look at the schools and what their match rates are in certain specialties, right? But I would say keep it more general because, again, 30 people are going to be reading your application, at least in our process, right? And you don't want to put somebody off with like such a specific thing, right? You want to, I would say, keep it more focused on, yes, if it's like I want to do OB because I care about women's health, blah, blah, like that is still very general, like a primary care field. Not to even say it has to be primary care, or even saying like surgery is okay, but maybe saying this is what I have been working towards. I am open once I get to medical school. I'm looking forward to exploring other specialties, but this is what I've been focused on. Because you kind of want to seem like you're, and hopefully you are, open-minded, like you're willing to explore, but it's okay to say I've been focused on this, but you kind of want to add a little caveat in there, but I'm still open to seeing what medical school has to offer me as far as exploration. So something like that, to where it's a little bit like you put a qualifier in there.
Yeah, no, it's great. Um, yeah, and I know most of the medical students I know is every day they change their specialty. So, and I think you make that decision end of your third year, so you got some time.
You got some time.
Are you able to touch on why some schools are using competency standards versus set of prereqs
Competency standards. Well,
versus prereq courses?
well, we all use competency standards. Just some people want the prereq courses that are going to be in alignment with some of those competency standards. So it just depends on the school. I can't really answer that for other schools, but for instance, we use the AAMC pre-professional competencies because they're, number one, well defined, right? So if we're looking at like longitudinal measurement, if we want to say, okay, we highly value these pre-professional competencies, and that's why we also use the preview situational judgment test, because then we're looking comparatively at how a student might fare in the third year, and then what community do they go and serve, and we're trying to showcase like areas of predictors in the future. That's what we're hoping to like do with some research, but I think it's mostly because when we talk about holistic review, AAMC gives us some guidelines, um, and every school interprets them a little bit differently based on their own policies and their missions. But right, we need some level of standardization because it's unfair to tell medical students like, okay, there's 100 and whatever 90 medical schools or whatever there is, and we're all looking for something different, but we have one application, right? So most medical schools follow the recommendation of the AAMC pre-professional competencies because that's general. for holistic review. Now, again, what they weigh heavily or don't weigh heavily, that's up to the individual medical school, but that's more about standardization to benefit the applicants so that you all have an understanding of what it takes to, what schools are looking for in a general sense in a medical school applicant.
Yeah, and I just put that list in there called the WMC Anatomy of an Applicant, and it's a really good thing you could download. It's free. It's a workbook, talks about competency, asks you a bunch of questions, self-assessment. It's free. Download it and take a look at it. Um, do you recommend we base our school list somewhat on the GPA and MCAT trends from the MSTAR, or should we focus more on the mission of the school?
Um, well, I say focus on the mission of the school, but this is why I say work with other people to see if you are ready to apply. Your GPA and your MCAT should somewhere be in the general ballpark of that school, right? If you're applying. So I do think you should look at it because you want to look at the percentage of not just GPA and MCAT, but like how many out-of-state students do they take? Like there's a lot of things you actually want to look at on the MSAR when deciding to apply, especially, right? This is an expensive process. So you want to apply in places that you have a good opportunity, but I'm also a fan of like, don't count yourself out, right? But if you have a certain GPA in like XYZ school, their average GPA is like, 3.9 and their average MCAT is like, 520. Well, if you're at a 497, then that probably is not the place unless you want a Nobel Peace Prize, right? So again, it depends on what your package looks like. We're looking at you holistically. But also, we need to know you can do medical school. We don't want to accept students that academically cannot handle medical school because it is hard. Like hard things are hard. If it was easy, everyone would do it, right? And so we want to make sure that we bring you in and you are prepared academically, and that means emotionally and physically for what this journey is going to be, because it is a hard academic field and a hard field mentally and physically. So that's why we want you to have, we do holistic review on your academics, your experience, your pre-professional competencies, because all of those things are important when we think about what this career looks like. So that's why I said it depends. And this is why I said you have to work with somebody who can help you be realistic. But also it's not like a dream killer. We don't want you working with someone who's going to discourage you and say you can't do it, but you do need to be realistic when you're applying and when you're ready to apply, because maybe you're not ready yet.
So this is a question. If we're current applicants, when would you typically hear back regarding our secondaries and interviews and all that good stuff?
Every school's different. It just depends. I always tell people don't freak out about Davis. We're just slow. We are so slow because we look at every single application. We don't have like a GPA or MCAT cutoff. We actually look at every single application. And so we're just slow. So we actually send secondaries like quite literally like all the way to like March. So we're just slow, like literally February 28th, where some schools are done interviewing by December. So it just depends on the school. It's okay to reach out to the admissions department and ask for general timeline. Most application portals are going to tell you where you're at in the process. But after you submit the secondary, so secondary requests sometimes can go out late, but after you submit the secondary, there's a long waiting period too. And I understand people get nervous when it gets closer to the end of spring if they haven't got interviews. And so that's where I start to say, talk to your advisor and talk about how many applications did you submit in a general sense, how many secondary invites did you get, and then how many interview offers did you get? Because that's going to help you also indicate where, if you have to be a reapplicant next cycle, where you might need some work, right? So if you got a ton of secondaries, then your metrics are probably fine. If you didn't get any interview invites, then there probably means there's some work that needs to be done in the application itself. And if you got an interview and multiple interviews, but you got rejected, that means your interview skills probably need some work. So again, look at the signs around you and talk with somebody who knows what a successful medical school applicant looks like.
And also, I would just say, please don't read blogs or social media that people say, I already got my secondary, my interview. It's like, don't keep up with the Joneses. Like, it's just,
Do not.
it's a random thing.
And it's destructive to your mental health. And your journey is not anybody else's journey. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Focus on yourself and you will be fine. And also some of these websites are nosy. Like they be telling people when I'm going on vacation, like you're not going to hear back because Charlene's out. These blogs are messy, y'all. Stay off the blogs.
For non-traditional applicants with STEM undergrads from 2018 undergoing GPA repay and a finance and finances are a barrier. Do you have suggestions for community college courses since there are lower division opposed to postbacks? So
Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, so again, it depends on what does the rest of your application look like? So again, this is an investment in yourself. A lot of times, so if you're trying to take coursework to boost your science GPA, it's totally fine to do community college courses, but what does that mean for you? Because that's why I tell students sometimes y'all want to do that, but then you're not. So in postbac, right? Most postbac programs don't allow you to work, for instance, right? You're taking science and test coursework. The expectation is A's, like quite literally. If you do not get 3.7 and above, it's not going to do what it needs to do, right? So if you want to do a DIY postbac, which is going to a CCE, College of Continuing Education, or a community college, again, completely fine. But you should apply the same rules. And I know finances are hard, but you should not be working. All of your time should be going into that, because if you don't achieve a 3.7 or above, it's going to actually backfire and hurt you. That's what you don't want. I had a panel of postbac students last year at the pre-health conference, and one person said, I worked for 2 years to save money to live so I could do a do-it-yourself postbac program without working. I just did my courses and studied for the MCAT. So again, this is an investment in yourself, and it's not always going to happen fast, and that is okay, because it's great to show like I've been committed to this for a long time. You might have to work and save your money to free up space for you to just focus on academics.
Yeah. And what Dr. Green said is it's some of the post-bac programs that are like not the consortium ones, they're very expensive. You're looking at $60,000 and you don't get financial aid for those. You don't call it's because they're non-degree programs. So going to community college, if you need to take general chemistry and OChem, a community college, I think it's what, $40, $46 a unit. And if you don't make enough money, you get a fee waiver. So it's economics is a huge thing. Just
Mhm.
because you go to a $60,000 post-bac program doesn't mean you're getting general chemistry and organic chemistry is going to be the same. It's not going to be any different. So yeah, I mean if you're limited by finances, then that's a huge thing that you have to take into consideration because what is it? Money doesn't grow on trees or so and those are people make very difficult decisions. And as Dr. Green said, some people have to take some time off and work to be able to afford it because you don't want to what is it half what is it called? I can't say the other thing, but it's half. We'll put
Oh,
that in there.
gotcha. There was a cuss word.
It's a cuss word. I can't say
Yes.
it.
You don't want to half step on what you're doing. So your mindset needs to be in the right place, whether you do a formal postbac or not. It's go time. It, a postbac, or formal or informal, DIY or formal, this is like the Olympic qualifier before the big show, right? This is saying, look what I can do when I focus, I have support. I am not working, right? Because a lot of us, right, especially I'm a first gen student, I'm just a girl from South Stockton. And so before they let me run a medical school, like, right, I worked at a shoe store, I did all of these things, right? I had to work, like, I had to give back to my family, I had to do other things. And so we know that that can be a barrier, especially for first generation students and students from underserved communities. Understand that that might have been a reason why XYZ happened academically, but you have to say, look what I can do when I don't have these other distractions. Because what do you think medical is going to be? Medical school, you're not going to have time for distractions either. Again, I get giving back to your family. That's really important. There's hard decisions to be made, but you're only going to, medical school is the job. And so you have to showcase you're ready for the job, essentially.
This is another question. If I want to improve my GPA, would you suggest a post-bac or a master's in science degree?
It depends. I cannot tell you without literally looking at your transcripts what you should do. So that's why you should talk to an advisor. But again, it depends on what your package needs, right? It depends on, because some people say I have a low GPA and it's like, a 3.3. And some people I say I have a low GPA and it's a 2.5. So I don't know what people mean with so don't put your specifics in the chat or anything like that, but you need to talk to an advisor about what you need. And again, a special master's program is going to showcase academic rigor, but it's not going to move your undergrad GPA. So it just depends on how much you need to move your undergrad GPA and how many units you have. Some people come to me with 127 units. Some people have 190, and it's hard to move a GPA when you're at 190 units, right? It really doesn't matter how many A's you get, but it's still okay to show that recent coursework of straight A's is going to really help showcase the academic rigor. So again, depends on what you need.
This is a funny one. Any advice or tips on what we should do after we completed our secondary for UC Davis School of Medicine? What should we do?
Is that a
Well,
funny one?
yeah, what should we wait? What should we do to wait,
What should we do?
breathe, pray, burn in,
Go on a hike?
go on a hike?
Do something to distract yourself that you have to wait. I just told y'all we are so slow. We are slow. You might be waiting till April. Who knows? But yeah, just really waiting. A lot of people try to send me like updates. We don't look at any of those things. We don't look at anything that's not in your AMCAS application. We don't want any letters from any of your mentors. We don't want your cardiologist emailing us because we're not going to look at anything that's not in your application. So it quite literally is just wait.
The other question is somebody's asking, do you recommend what recommendations do you have for career changers that have a graduate degree and advanced aid as part of their application?
And have advanced what?
Advanced degrees like masters or PhDs, I think.
What do I advise?
Yes.
It depends. It just depends. Like what advanced degrees, what does your undergrad look like? What have you done recently? So for me, it'd be less about your degrees because again, if that ties into your story of why medicine, great. Great to include that. Like again, if it's a master's in public health, we've had students who had PhD in infectious disease and they tied in like this was part of it's fulfilling, but I wasn't getting what I really wanted was medicine, right? So it just depends on what the story is and what your narrative around those degrees are. But really, it's going to matter like what have you done recently, right, to showcase your interest in medicine and how you're fostering that passion.
And this is also another question. Does it look bad if you realize that you're interested in medicine later in life?
Does it look bad?
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
So first of all, our youngest student at UC Davis School of Medicine was 19 since I've been here. I've been here 14 years. Our oldest student is 55. So no, it does not look bad. We're looking at who do you care about? Who do you want to serve? What are you going to do with medicine? Like, what are you going to do with it? For the next 50 years or the next 5 years. If you're going to serve an underserved community in a rural area with no doctor and you can do medical school, we want you. So I think it just depends on what does your package look like. We don't actually, first of all, it's against the law. It's unconstitutional for us to look at your age, gender, or race, amongst other things. But we're looking at, again, alignment with our mission. We're looking at, can you handle the academic rigor of medical school? We're looking at, what experiences have you had that showcase that you've really taken the time to explore your future in medicine? That's what we're looking at. What are you going to contribute? What's going to be unique about you? And how are you going to help healthcare be better, right? Because we know healthcare needs some work.
Yeah, we've had some people that have started. I mean, we had one person who started medical school at 47 after being a business car mechanic for 25 years. So, and we've had a medical student who was 50. So, and Dr. Green said 55. So, and obviously, if you're older, you've probably thought about this much longer than,
Mhm.
you know. Does having a minor in a different non-STEM field serve as a positive in your medical school application? Also, do any majors matter? You know, matter for
Nope, doesn't matter for
admission?
majors as long as you've done your prereqs. And for a minor, it's up to you if it's important or not, right? So if you did a minor that is important to you and it contributes to who you are and why medicine, you can talk about it, right? Like I did bio, but I majored in dance because I love dance. I love sharing energy with people. I went to an elder home and taught a salsa lesson, whatever, right? So how does it tie into your story is what we care about. We don't care what you minored in. If it's not important to you, it's not important to us. So you have to decide for yourself how you would integrate that into your story if it matters to you, right? Maybe you just did a minor, like I just had enough units to get a minor in child development, so I did. You don't have to talk about it. You just list it.
Yeah, and then yeah, that's and also if it makes you happy. Yeah, and then don't, people, I mean, I had somebody the other day said, "Oh, I was told that I should major in bioengineering because that's gonna look good." It's like that's a really hard major and that's gonna hurt your GPA. Don't do it,
It's not
But
going to
if
look good if you don't like it and you didn't do well in it.
yeah.
It's not going to look good. And then they're
Um
like, why didn't you go be a bioengineer? Why are you trying to do medicine?
um this is another question for students that are out of state. What is considered having strong ties? Any specific examples would be greatly appreciated.
Strong ties would be like you are from out of state, but you went to college here and developed ties to the community while in college, did something, have some activities. Also, you have a very close family member, like not your grandmother's fifth descendant, but like, oh, I spent summers with my grandmother there in Fresno every summer and did this. What did you do there? Right. So ties is not just I have an aunt there and I never visit her. That's not ties. Ties is I have consistently been somewhere and have some level of connection to the community.
Yeah, and yes, and I think UC Davis's mission is very specific to
California.
California. And so I think it's really important reading the mission statements of the medical schools, because I know like some other UCs don't are not focused on that. Um, this is another question that comes up quite often. Is participating in research in health related area helpful for your application? Does it compare more directly related to health opportunities like volunteering at clinic or shadowing? So I think they want to see if research is going to give you a more advantage as volunteering or shadowing.
Well, you need the complete package. So I don't think we're as we we definitely care about research because you need research to be a competitive residency application, and you don't want to be in medical school trying to learn how to do research when you're trying to learn how to be a doctor. So you need some foundational experience in research for sure. So you do need a little, at least, for UC Davis School of Medicine. Now, some schools are very research heavy and very research focused. So that's why it's important to look at the mission of the school, to look at the average hours. So even though we have an emphasis on it, but not as huge as we would like, serving underserved communities. If you look at our website, we actually have like the average number of activities, although I feel like y'all inflate them a little bit, but there, and you can see the research numbers are pretty high for those who were admitted and matriculated to our school. So you definitely need some, because you need research experience to be a good physician, and you need research experience to be a competitive residency applicant. But if you won the Nobel Peace Prize, then we might overlook that.
Yeah, there's also a lot of questions about clinical experience, shadowing. And so we did a 2.5 hour talk that you could download, and we also have a bunch of yeah, there's a presentation and PDF that you could download that has like some so go look at that. So we're gonna, so this way it's a more detailed thing about how to get shadowing, clinical
Mhm.
experience, all the things you could do. Um, and some people are asking about metrics for MCAT, GPA, and that stuff. I'll post that in the chat as well, where you can look all that stuff up. This person has a question on if they have EWs on their transcript because of family and health issues, is that looked upon negatively?
No, not the EWs, especially post-pandemic. There's been a lot more training and flexibility from admissions committees because we actually have that now, right? Because we have to like educate people on the things that we might see that are different. But EW particularly, that means that you have a school approved exception. And so we would also honor that as well.
So this is my favorite question I was asked. How many hours of volunteering and political experience do you need to have?
Now, you knew what I was going to say when you asked me that. It
They,
depends. There's no certain amount of hours, but it depends. So definitely, I think you should look at that link. But your whole application needs to tell a story. And again, we want to know that you've spent time like building yourself as a person, developing emotional intelligence, growing in maturity, spend time with different diverse populations. Like that's important for your growth. I don't like when people ask me how many hours sometimes because then it feels very checkboxy. Like, okay, I'm going to do 500 and I'm done with that. If you're really passionate about the thing you're volunteering for, then maybe you have a lot more hours and you do a little bit of research, right? Versus I really love research, so I'm doing a little bit of volunteering, but I really am passionate about research. You've got to do like it has to be your story. You can't just do stuff because it's what you think people want. We want you to be well-rounded, but put your energy into where you think your career is going to go and where you feel like you're going to be able to personally grow professionally.
yeah, if you spend 10,000 hours of just showing up
Yeah.
to the emergency room and giving a blanket, I don't know, but if you say I spend 200 hours and I did and so it's just yeah, it just depends.
Yeah.
Um, is getting experience for research, um, clinical hours and everything, is it more favorably if it's paid or not paid? Which
Does
one is better?
doesn't matter to us.
Yeah, the other thing is if somebody's paying you, that means that you've actually like applied and they trust you and you've gone through some sort of rigor than just showing up and volunteering. So I think there is like that accountability.
It depends on what it is. Yeah, for sure.
This is a question actually. If you're transferring from a community college to a four-year school, should you get an associate degree or just transfer? Which one looks better?
I always tell people to go to just transfer. We don't typically review associate's degrees, but like I said in my presentation, you'll probably end up with one anyway, by the way, because of the classes that you have to take. You'll probably end up with associates anyway.
How important are non-healthcare extracurriculars on my applications? How would those impact my consideration for my application?
Yeah, you definitely don't want to look like a robot. So it's great to be a well-rounded real person. But don't just put stuff to be putting stuff. What I've seen people is do lately on a lot of applications is like putting things that they think is funny. People got to read this. So it needs to be like serious, not serious in nature, but it needs to be like authentic and contribute to who you are. Like put things that are important to you. But I've literally seen people put like 10,000 hours of stretching, um, like 5,000 hours of like video games. And again, if that contributes to your path to medicine, explain that. But don't just put stuff that you think like will be like, oh, this I'm being goofy, funny. Nobody thinks it's funny when we have to read like 3,500 applications in screening. So put things that are meaningful that are going to be respectful of reviewers' time. But it's important to your story. You should put on your application what's important to you.
Um, this is also, do you require recommendation letters from science professors and how many?
We don't require them. It is recommended because remember, you're not only applying to our school. So number one, we only look at 6 letters. Every school is different. So some people are submitting like 10 letters. We're gonna look at the first, whatever the first 6 are. So we do recommend at least one clinical letter that could be from a physician, or let's say you were really close to a nurse manager that you work with, whoever can write you a good letter. I'd rather have a good letter than like it's the right person. And then an academic letter, yes, I would recommend having one because you want someone to speak to your academic ability. So again, not required, but certainly recommended.
Question. I'm entering my desire to become going to medicine after 10 years of working in a medical back office. Is there a cap on applicants' age? I uh I have heard that older applicants are disadvantaged.
No, I think I already answered that one.
Yep.
Our oldest matriculate.
Well, this is
Uh,
actually they posted that question right after you mentioned
oh,
that, so
got
I
it.
just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
wanted to
Make
say
sure we
yeah.
get it. Yep.
So I think someone who's done this for 10 years, you know what it is to like,
Mhm.
medicine and hopefully you get a letter from that physician that you worked with for 10 years.
Mhm.
Um, uh, this is a general question, but I'm just going to ask it because we get, I don't want anybody to accuse me not asking those questions. What would you recommend to improve prepare in order to be more successful in your medical school application?
What was the first part?
What would you recommend to improve
Okay.
prepare in order to have a successful medical school application?
Well, that's a big question. So number one, I would recommend you get engaged with some of those pre-med networks I mentioned, because you need to learn to assess for yourself where you should be on your journey. Um, Another thing, just in a general sense, I'm actually a psychologist by training. So I would recommend you develop not only good study skills, but good coping skills. Like, again, medicine's hard. So what you do to handle stress, like developing those patterns early and those strategies early is actually really important. So by the time you get to medical school, you will, number one, be able to recognize when stress is entering your life, but you will also know how to mitigate that stress when you need a break or what you need to do. Like when I'm stressed, that's a day I need to go spend time with my parents or my family. Maybe your family stresses you out. That's a day I need to put my phone on do not disturb. So you need to start figuring out what are those mechanisms that's going to help you cope when times get difficult. So that is something you can do to prepare. Other than just like, again, the activities, academic preparation. I think it's also kind of preparing your community around you. Like, I am going to need support. I want you to be able to tell me when I'm relying on you too much, or I want to keep communication open, or when there are times when I can't, you know, come to grandma's 90th birthday because I have an exam the next day. Like I need a level of understanding. So start kind of preparing your support system in your community for what medical school is going to be like. And to learn that you need to get engaged with that pre-med network so you can hear from medical students and other kind of like faculty on what this journey is like.
Yes, and then also, this is a question that somebody asked, and any recommendation to make the transferring process to go smoother
Oh, the transfer to 4-year?
from community college? Yeah,
Yeah, transfer to 4-year from community college. Yes. Number one, meet with your community college counselor. And also the transfer center, typically, if your community college has a transfer center, which most do, they have transfer workshops on like how to fill out like the TAP for the tag process for UCs, how to like, should you do an ADT degree for the CSUs? So there's different like systemic programs actually in place to make transfer easier that give you kind of that guaranteed admission. So look into those programs. Like UCLA has their honors program. So you need to look into the programs that are going to give you advantages, right? And don't be afraid to take advantage. Like you need all the help you can get. You should not be turning down opportunities, programs, scholarship, sign up for everything because you can always say no to something you have, but make sure you sign up for those opportunities. And again, community college resources, they're there to help you. So you need to be getting yourself well trained in how to access resources, tutoring, all of those things. So transfer process specifically, I would say check with your transfer center and get very familiar with assist.org. That's like the Bible for counselors. That's what we use pretty much to help every student figure out, okay, they're going from this community college to this 4-year. Here are the things that they need along with their general education courses. Like that's assist.org is pretty much the Bible for us. So
yeah. And the other thing is that assist.org is really updated. So if your counselor misses something, that is also there. Also, I would just make a plug for MESA programs at California Community College. There's one at every single one of them. And so definitely look into those. They're great support, not only just for making transfer smoother, they take you on field trips, EOPS, take you on field trips, community, they also have tutoring.
yep.
So yeah, so definitely look into those resources. And your transfer center, every California community college has a transfer center, and like that's literally their job. So tap
Literally.
into that.
Mhm.
Um, this is how can you expand on UC Davis' interest as having doctors to go serve the underserved communities? And how does UC Davis School of Medicine identify those candidates with those goals?
The first part was how can I expand on how we like basically pick mission aligned students?
Yes.
Okay, so we look at your application, number one, and a good indicator is like, where are you from, right? If you're from an underserved community, that's an indication that you probably have some experience. And then we're looking for that to be mirrored in your experiences. So that's typically how we do it. So could be the origin of where you're from or where you have several volunteer or work experience efforts on your application. Then we also have our Community Health Scholars Program. So if you apply for one of those programs, we have 5 of them now. Rural Prime, Reach is for the Northern Central Valley, Teach is for the urban underserved, HPC is an accelerated 3-year program, and then Tribal Health Prime is for those that want to serve Native and tribal communities, right? So if you apply for one of those programs, you get an opportunity to kind of expand on that too. So that's another way we kind of take a look at, if you have a specific interest and focus on one of those communities that we're really prioritizing. But we do it all from a statistical standpoint. We actually look at data where there are health disparities, and we kind of look at those counties. And the dark is basically this big map that's like goes from various shades of green. And the darker the green, the more underserved and the more physician shortages that they have in that community. And so we kind of look at those areas to prioritize from kind of the Northern Central Valley up. But in general, we're focused on California. So we have about half of our class comes from SoCal, the other half from NorCal.
Yeah. And then the other part of it too, that's your application. If you say I have a heart and desire to help the urban underserved, but in your last 4 or 5 years you haven't done anything, then that's kind of or if you say I want to find a cure for cancer, but you haven't done any cancer research, that's kind of like, I don't know,
Yeah.
that's just me.
No,
That's
it's
just
true. I always say make the math, right? Make it add up. Because what I'll see sometimes, like I want to serve underserved populations. I care about primary care, and then they just shadowed a plastic surgeon. That's not it. Like unless this plastic surgeon was working in a community where, right,
burn burn
like I was saying, they were
patients.
helping burn victims or like migrant workers who like had derm problems, so they shadowed a dermatologist. But shadowing like a plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills doesn't line up with I want to serve underserved population. So that's why I say make it make sense. You got to make the math.
Yeah, I mean, I had one person who worked with for a plastic surgeon, but that plastic surgeon did a lot of free tattoo removal for gang members, and
Right.
so
That
there's a lot of things that you could do. So like, you know, what would you recommend to a college student who's interested in going in medical school? What tips can you provide to a STEM student?
a community college student interested in going
Yes.
to school. Yeah, so number one, as mentioned, Mesa is a great place. You need to tap into your local resources. If you are lucky enough to be at a community college that one of the community health scholars programs is at, that'd be a great place to tap into. But again, pre-health club, if you don't have a pre-health club at your school, guess what? You're the new president. Start one. I'm sure there are other like-minded students who are really interested. And again, that's where we go to provide the resources. When I have opportunities or scholarships, I'm going to the pre-health club. I'm giving presentations to the pre-health club. So sometimes you have to do a little bit of work on your own to establish, but then that thing will carry on and really serve other students. And that really showcases leadership as well. Going to pre-health conferences, the networking I mentioned, learning the language. But as mentioned before, while you're in community college, yes, get LinkedIn, get like connected to the community, but really you need to focus on academics. Like you need to build your academic foundation. So that way, by the time you transfer, you are ready with a set of study skills. You are ready for academic rigor, post-transfer, and then you can really start to get heavily involved in other activities as well, like clinical research.
Yeah, and I could just say that like medicine is very like you work in a community, like no person, you depend on x-ray techs and lab technicians and other physicians, nurses. So like this is a really good time to start working in a community of other people that have the same goals, same interests, but also come from very different backgrounds. And so being part of a gang, I guess you could say, is really important. That's why gangs are so popular, is for that reason. So kind of, create your own gang. Um,
Dubin is not telling you all to go start a gang.
no, but a gang, like in a sense, a community of gang of
Yes. Similarly driven individuals.
thank you. Um, this is a question. I took a course at a continuing education at a UC school, and due to stress, I cheated on a lab report. How will this impact me?
So yeah, you do need to put that in your institutional actions section of your AMCAS application. And you just need to be honest and accountable. What happened? What did you learn from it? We're like, nobody's expecting perfection. But what did you learn from the situation, right? Ethics is an important part of medicine. So you want to make sure you don't leave us guessing. You need to tell us how that impacted you and what did you learn from it. Probably maybe want to include that nothing's happened since and you would never compromise your ethics and you realize like how bad that felt. So whatever, but you need to make sure you explain that thoroughly.
And what you learned from it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So this is a person has a question. Are interviews done in person or virtually?
Ours are virtually, all virtual.
Um, does UC Davis offer scholarships, merit scholarships, financial aid scholarships?
Needs and merit scholarships. We do. So about 66% of the class gets some form of financial aid, and those awards range from full tuition and fees to 5,000 per year. So whatever your offer letter is at the beginning of your medical school journey, you get that actually every year.
And then how many years do we have to apply? I took a fifth year, and I'm curious how long before I need to retake classes. Like, I think this person wants to know how long they should wait until they retake a class.
Doesn't matter if you take it the next semester or so you mean you've been out of school for a while? Is that what they're meaning?
No, I think they took a course that was like 5 years ago. How long they should take to retake it, I think that's the
Well, if they
question.
took the course and it's still good, again, you need to check with the schools because ours is 5 years recommended recency, but not required, where some schools require it. So it just depends on the school, but I don't think there's like a wait time.
All right. And then so somebody asking me about I already posted somebody asked about the average accepted date. So I put that in the chat so you can take a look at that. This is also all right, some of them, oh, this is people want to ask about GPA repair,
Mhm.
and so then they have 6 years of clinical experience. How do you recommend that uh they they apply, but also they haven't done any research?
Um, how do I recommend that they apply for um when they haven't done any apply for what? 'Cause my internet kept breaking up. Apply for what if they haven't done any research? I didn't hear that part.
Yeah, so basically just want to know what if have a lot of clinical experience, they need to repair their GPA, do they still need to do research?
I'd recommend, yeah, do a little. If you want to be competitive broadly, you need to at least do a little bit. So it's okay if you have a ton of clinical, because that is really highly valued, right? Because number one, we want to make sure you've been in a clinical environment, because think about the things that happens in a clinical environment, right? You're going to see people pass away, you're going to have to deliver bad news. So we want to make sure emotionally you are prepared for the clinical setting for sure. But I would recommend, again, if you can do some level of research because you will need that for residency. And that is valued. So
All righty. Well, Dr. Green, sorry for keeping you longer. I'll try to answer some of these that are there, but Dr. Green has to go, and I really appreciate your time.
problem.
And sorry for keeping you 6 minutes longer.
No problem. Great to speak with you all again. And hopefully I will see you all at some of these networking opportunities. Don't forget Avenue M application is currently open. I'll be at the big pre-health conference at UC Davis on November 2nd. Hope to see some of you all there. Register early if you'd like to go because registration does fill up. I think they only accept like 3,000 participants or attendees for that day. So make sure you sign up for that. And if you are interested in postbac, our postbac consortium for the California Postbac Consortium that will open up in December this year. So feel free to reach out with any of those emails that I put on the screen before if you have any questions. Take care,
Yes,
everyone.
thank you very much, and sorry for keeping you longer.
Bye.
Bye. All right. So